Welcome to Rom Wills Money Matters. Thoughts about restaurant chains closing. Now, I'll talk about like businesses on here and money management, but we got to look at what's going on in the overall environment. If you look at the GDP in the United States, where most of my viewers come from, it's 70% consumer spending. What are consumers spending on? Well, the little things, but a big part of it is going to restaurants. Restaurants are closing. Now, I would say there's two reasons for them to be closing. Two reasons. They may or may not discuss it. Different commenters might discuss it. But the first reason is the obvious: inflation. People can't afford them. People can't afford them. Even myself, I could probably go to a restaurant every weekend. Used to take my sons every weekend to restaurants and everything. We eating at home more, and not so much that I can't afford it, but more for the second reason, which I'll bring up. But for the first reason, a lot of people just can't afford it. Anytime, I was joking with somebody recently. You remember, like, for the old heads too. Remember, if we spent back in the 90s, if we spent $100 at a grocery store, we have a full cart, maybe a cart and a half and stuff. Now you just got one of those carry baskets. It's like, how does this come to $100? You're like, man, we won't talk about gas and everything. Like, inflation is a trip. And, the factors that go into all of that goes beyond whoever's in office at the time. So it's not a political discussion. It's just going to happen. It's just going to happen and everything. So that's one reason people just can't afford to go to restaurants, especially, these restaurants, they writing the gratuity in. They not playing around. Now, I'm somebody, I've even done a video saying, hey, give them a gratuity. Because you get that money back one way or the other. That money got to flow. I don't mind. But some people be funky with their gratuities and everything. So they figured, why even eat here at all? So that's one thing, just the inflation, everything, prices. But the second thing is, when I look at the restaurants chains that are closing, the reality is people are just eating different. You see, I'm going to tell you something now, and this is something I'm going to get into as well tomorrow when I talk about retail chains, just retail stores and everything. But if you really look at most of these restaurants, they were built up through the force of the baby boomers. The baby boomers, they still alive, but they might not go out as much themselves. And even if they have money, but they also, they're dying off. They're dying off. And hasn't reached a critical amount yet, because the youngest baby boomer is really just maybe a few months older than myself. Maybe 60. I put them at 60. So they're still around, still doing their stuff. But if you go down further, like a lot of young people, you're talking about millennials, you're talking about Gen Z, and now starting to grow up now and starting to get older now is Generation Alpha. They're not spending as much. See, understand something with any economy. Any economy is based on the people, the demographics, whether they're going to spend. And the thing is, these restaurants, they were built up around certain demographics. And that was great when those demographics were numerous, but just throwing in stuff like inflation, they're getting older, might want to cook at home more. They're just not spending stuff. If you seriously take a look at all these businesses, especially restaurants, particularly restaurant chains, they were at their height when the boomers were at their height. And now, when you look at any subsequent generations, they don't have as many people as the boomers. These chains are closing, and not enough people to eat at them, especially when you have these chains that are ubiquitous. They're all over the place. And see, people ain't thinking about that. Now, So those are those two reasons. And now just some quick thoughts on it. If 70% of the United States GDP is based on consumerism, and like I said, people are always going to eat. And let me be clear on something. These are just the chains. You still got restaurants building up, but have y'all noticed that people are eating at some of these like restaurants? They might have one or two, or like single owner, they own by the chef or anything like that. They're giving a different type of food. They're giving a different type of food. People just are eating differently. You know, that's affecting the economy. That's affecting it, because think about if a chain closes, how many people do these chains have? Like one of the, I saw something, I followed something about a cheesesteak store opened by this brother. He has a chain, a growing chain that I follow on Dave's Big Dave's Cheesesteaks. And they were talking about them opening up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and creating 30 jobs. These are jobs being lost. Yeah, you could say, well, they can maybe go someplace else, but it depends on where it is. Depends on where it is. You know, if they're in a metropolitan area, yeah, maybe they can get a job someplace else, but there's several factors that still might make that hard, especially since they're talking about automating more and more. And one of the issues with, minimum wage going up to 15, they may not hire as much. All of a sudden, somebody's, they're making 15, and that's a good, that's a great minimum, but they're not working as much, or maybe not putting in 40 hours. There's a lot to that. And see, that affects other things, because people might not think, some people might think, well, they're just restaurant workers. No, this is how they're making their money. You get a lot of people making money, especially, people might not have that degree behind them or anything like that. They might think to themselves, hey, shoot, we're not making what we could be making. So they're not doing what they could for the economy, because every time I see something close, people might say, oh, they're closing. But okay, say you get a restaurant chain that closes 100 stores. That's a lot. But what if there isn't someplace else for those young people or even older people increasingly to work? All of a sudden, they don't have jobs there. If you look, one of the things, I've seen some videos here and there about like very, very poor areas of the United States. They don't have anything. And see, that happens. And see, I've noticed that with some restaurant chains, even in this area, the buildings may sit empty for a while. And just like the chains are closing, sometimes just single standing stores are closing too. Like there's an area near where I live. Now, the county I live in, the average household income is 6 figures, average, right? 6 figures, okay, we're making some money. We saying average, right? But I can think of some like restaurant chains and regular stores that have closed. And they sitting there closed. Now, of course, there's some empty, but they're sitting there closed. That's a business. Those are jobs. Those are stuff of that nature, And so it's really making an impact. It's something I'm paying attention to. Don't think just because you don't work there, it might not impact you at some point, all right? So that's just thoughts about just the restaurant chains. And you know what I've said before, you can make money with food. You can still make money with food. Like you do have plenty of restaurants open that may be more unique in their offerings, and that might be the way to go. But then creating a chain from that can be difficult. And then you still got these people out here who might have worked at those places, made money at those places, not just a part-time job. This is their life. I've met some older people, this is pretty much their job. That's it. They ain't moving on from that. That can mess up some things. So I'm gonna get more into actual clothing chains too in the next one, all right? So, but until then, let's go make that money.